exactly what I needed to do. It was a voice that would not stop, but I've got to jump.
That North Star, once you know it, once you find it, the collaboration, the partners, they'll come.
Absolutely. It's like you're a big beacon and you're going, hey, like come, let's all go in the same direction.
What's the importance of a personal brand for founders and entrepreneurs?
There's no way around it. You have to.
You also speak a lot about women empowerment. How do we enable more female founders to start businesses, and then secondly to build successful and impactful businesses?
I was always very much drawn towards issues that women were dealing with, and when I moved into this space, I really realized that women are stopping themselves. It's heartbreaking to see that, because it's just going like, whoop, no, you're not going to do that, you're not going to do that, and you're not going to do that. And it can be two things. It can be, I heard a stat yesterday, in fact, the latest stat that I know of is that women get, which is a shocking statistic. And when I had that realization, I thought, women need a dream way bigger.
Sonja.
Hi.
Why do you do what you do?
Ooh, strong opener. Because I love to connect with people and I love to tell stories and create connections with people, with brands, with communities, very simply.
And growing up, what seeds were planted for you to develop this creativeness? And essentially what I'm trying to ask is, how did that shape your thoughts and your beliefs of this world?
There are so many things. I would start, wow, psychologists would be so happy because I would start with my parents, but that's important. Both of them work in the medical industry, so about caring for people, and used to run medical practice. So I grew up seeing my parents truly go out of their way for people, to make them feel not only as if they were coming through to be seen as a patient, but to be seen as a person. And both my parents demonstrated that to me from a very young age. Is how do we focus on people? And that informed a big way of the way that I see the world. Creativity has always been something I've been drawn to. I've been writing since I was a kid, and I was always in productions. I studied theatre. It's something that comes very easily to me. The storytelling part comes very easily to me, and I think if you match a deep understanding and love for people, and you match that with creativity and storytelling, it enables me to do what I do now. So we could be here for a long time, me telling you about the history of growing up and what that meant, but those two things are crucial, is people, loving people, and being able to be in an environment where my creativity was always encouraged, and people all around me were encouraging of different creative endeavors, whether that was acting or writing or not a singer. I wish I was. I think that's the one thing they were like, oh, don't do that. But everything else is very much encouraged. I grew up in a very encouraging household. I grew up as an only child, so you can imagine whatever I want to try and explore, they were like, go and do that and play. So.
And do you think that having that support also helped with developing your internal self-awareness?
That's an interesting question. Sure, of course. I think it's growing up as an only child and having parents that were a lot older, having a father that was a lot older. Both my parents are older, and always being around older company, because I didn't have a sibling. So when we had dinner parties, I was the youngest person by far. And older people are naturally more self-aware. So I think that's also a big part of it, is growing up around adult conversation and understanding what they're talking about and listening to things that you hear all sorts of things about businesses, business problems, marriages, relationships, and you're just a kid, so you pick up these crazy things. And it's a beautiful question because I never thought about it in that way, but absolutely, yeah.
And how does self-awareness tie into developing one's intuition?
They're two sides of the same coin, or they're the same thing, essentially. Self-awareness and intuition. Intuition to me is really important. I think it's something that we're not taught. We're definitely not taught to listen to our intuition. We're not taught to know that we know. We're looking for answers outside of ourselves. And all of the answers that we want to know, it sounds so cliche, but they truly are. When you sit in stillness, when you listen, you write, and you don't take in any other stimulus, you have this ability to solve your own problems or challenges. And self-awareness comes in knowing that all of those tools that you need are there. Maybe you need to cultivate them, but you have the ability to solve for those issues or figure things out. Not always in a bad way, they can be really good things.
And how has it helped you in your journey to have this strong intuition?
It's been essential. I know when I make a decision that's based on what I think everyone else wants me to do, and I know when I make a decision based on what I really want to do, and the outcomes are so different, because we can see those decisions and they've taken me, and maybe they've been successful in a way that's outwardly successful, but they didn't feel good and it didn't feel like what I wanted to do. The other side is to do, when I've listened to my intuition, I've trusted my intuition deeply, even though there's something that we don't acknowledge with intuition is when you have to make that decision, you know it's the right decision, but your brain is going, absolutely not, don't do that, this is the wrong decision, go back to safety, don't quit your job, don't start a new company. Those things are, your brain is going, that's not safe, you don't know that, you shouldn't do that, but your intuition is going like, now's the time, you should do this. When you follow that, it unfolds in a way, and you trust it, and you go, wow, I listened to myself that one time, and it turned out to be way better than it did than I thought it would. So if I keep trusting myself and it unfolds in a way that is good, I learn to know that I know, and to learn to trust myself, and that is a beautiful process. So it's a journey that I've been on for many years, and a journey that I always try and bring other people along as well, because it's powerful, especially as a woman, to know that you have this compass and it's in you.
It almost also what I'm hearing from you is it helps you with this self-belief,
yeah,
that you do have it in you to make the right choice,
yeah,
and regardless of what the external world is saying.
Yeah.
And also, was that a case for you when you studied and then pursued your postgrad in marketing?
Yes.
What was the intention behind that?
It's a funny story, because when I went to university, there was only one promise that I made to my mother, and she said, just promise me you won't do theatre. I went, absolutely not. Why would I ever do theatre? I'm coming. I'm serious, Mom. I'm coming. I'm going to be, I don't know what I'm going to do exactly, but I promise you I'm going to be very serious. And at university, I think many universities do that in the first week. All the different subjects, they have like an introduction to the course. And I went to all of these different introductions. I went to like psych introductions, and I went to anthropology, and you can hear I did a BA, and I did sociology, and I went, there's this one slot, and I have nothing to do in this 1 hour, and there's a theatre, like drama course, like a talk. I just want to see. I'm never going to do this, but let me just see. Anyway, and I walked in, they were playing music, and I started dancing, and I went, God damn it, now I'm doing theatre. Like I just knew. And I didn't say anything until my term results came out, and my mother went like, why is there theatre? And it was a difficult conversation to have, but I think I knew, my body knew, that was something that I needed to do, and I loved it. It was my favorite course, and it really taught me so much, and it's been invaluable now in my career, is how do you tell stories and how do you connect, and that's what it teaches you, is to connect very deeply. I didn't know it at the time, but I knew that was something that I needed to do. And then I went, okay, I've done the thing that I really want to do, but now I want to go. Marketing was always something that was fascinating to me. Throughout, like whenever I was growing up, I'd watch ads to know where that would take me, but I was always fascinated by Super Bowl ads, all kinds of ads. What is it that in those ads is connecting to people, and how do you build a brand? These are words that I have now. I didn't have those words at the time. So I thought, okay, let me go into marketing, and that was perfect because it was like the theater creative part of it, and then it's like the storytelling, and how do you, I guess in this world, in like a capitalist world, marketing makes sense, right? It's like it's not the next step, but it absolutely helps to have this background of storytelling and then know how to sell that.
We're going to dive a lot into that in your current business, but your early career was at Dimensions Data.
Yes.
What did that teach you, and how beneficial was that?
Oh, yeah, that was a funny time. I got this. There were two options for me. The one was to stay in Cape Town. I got a cushy job at a PR firm working for doing the PR for a big fashion brand. And then I got this job at Dimension Data as part of the graduate program. And I was really stuck between these two things. One is I love fashion, and it was very interesting to me. I wanted to stay in Cape Town. And then the other part, I thought, I don't know what that looks like. I don't want to be in corporate. I don't know tech, and I'm notoriously, ridiculously, can barely switch on my computer. So for me to go into tech was like a big joke. So I thought I go towards discomfort, and let me see what that looks like. So when I started on the graduate program, I was a fish out of water. And I found it very difficult to assimilate in that environment. Very tech, very male, and very sales. All things that made me feel unbelievably uncomfortable. And, I knew intuitively that there was something that I needed to learn. There are many things that I needed to learn. The first, and probably the most important thing, is I felt as if I stood out in my way of thinking, in the way that I would speak, in the way that I would dress, in the way that I would present myself. And I wanted so badly to assimilate, but I couldn't. And I knew what the lesson there for me was, it's okay to stand out. It's okay to be different from other people. We're taught in the society that you should be like everyone else. And there's a beautiful opportunity, if you feel comfortable in who you are and trust in your intuition, that there's something for us to learn from everyone else. So when you're able to, whatever it is, but when you're able to stand out and to disagree, other people are enabled to express themselves as well because they feel more comfortable. That was my first lesson. The second lesson, and this is something that's helped me throughout my career, is corporate. As much as we hate it, as much as we have all the bad things to say about it, I could be here for a long time speaking about how difficult it was to be a creative in corporate. It taught me to speak to the people who are making the decisions. I never knew how to do that. And I was very lucky to be close to the decision makers and understand how they think and understand how they build strategies. You never know at the time where that's going to lead, but you have to take every opportunity. Even if you go, I don't want to be here, you go, what can I learn from this? I've walked out of this room, I've walked away from this job, and I've gone, okay, I've taken these main things. Yeah, some really weird, I learned things that I didn't need to know. Why do I have these things in my brain? I don't need to know them. But there's also these parts that you can really take so much from these experiences that you're a part of.
I think that's a really important point that you touched on, speaking to the decision makers.
Yes.
And now when I'm doing sales, when I'm trying to close the deal, if that person can't say yes, they are not the right person to be speaking to. Yeah. So it's so
exactly
valuable that you also learned that early on. your next companies Canon and NTT,
Yes.
was that also similar experiences?
So NTT was, so Dimension Data, it's changed quite a few times, but Dimension Data is owned by NTT. Actually, in fact, now they're no longer, but they were. So I did a brief stint in HR for my sins, because so this is a good thing. I was in so at NTT I worked as an employer brand specialist. So it was the first role that had ever existed, first ever marketing role that had ever existed. And what they really wanted within that role is, how do we attract top talent? And that role was very interesting, first of all, because it didn't exist before, so it was really mapping out what that role could look like. But something that I'd never thought about before is employee experience. We speak about getting candidates, right? And we speak about getting sales and building a business. But once someone works in the company, how much focus is put on making sure that that person is equipped in a way where they're equipped, okay, they have the hardware, they can do their job, they have a good manager, but how do we make sure it relates to the culture? So one thing that was really important is to say, we've sold them the dream. And often you see these massive companies, everyone wants to work for them, Nike, Google, Vogue, Elle, all of these huge companies. And then you hear the experiences of the people inside, and they go like, oh, this is a hellhole. You know, how can we create, and this comes into customer experience, it's not that different. In fact, very similar. How do we create an experience for the employees that matches what we've put out there? So we've said, we're this amazing brand, come and work for us. You can write your own check, you can forge your own path, yada yada, whatever that creative is. And then they come and work for your company, and they go like, yeah, that matches exactly. I thought that yeah, makes sense. This is where I thought it was going to work. But often it's not. So how do we work to make sure that experience is seamless?
And if I'm hearing you correctly, that experience taught you what not to do in your current business.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we all have experiences that we can learn from. And I don't know, I would have never been in the employee space. But what I did realize at the time is I love customer experience. It's endlessly fascinating to me, but from a place of authenticity, not just, how we can talk so much about a brand. You can have the biggest budget and make the most noise about your brand, but how can customers actually connect with that? So you can tell them how amazing you are, and then they interact with you and they go, not so much, I don't think that was a great experience. So the customer experience and the employee experience, and then reverse all the way back, that's a human being. We often just think we talk customer and like employee experience. That is a human. That person has these motivations. How do we understand what that person wants? And that's important work.
That's interesting. You also saying that the customer experience is directly linked to how happy and joyful the employee is in the organization.
Yeah, I would say so there's many different takes on this, and people say like customers are the most important. Absolutely, they're the most important. We'll go into it about like partners and seeing customers as partners. That's how I see them. But your employees, you have to make sure that they're happy, because they're the ones they're serving your customers. They have to make them happy. If something goes wrong, they pick up the phone, they're not speaking to you always. If you're a huge company, they're speaking to your employees. So that connection with your employees is the one thing that you can directly impact quite quickly. It's not the easiest, of course not. It's a long-term relationship. But at the end of it, you want to make them happy. You want people to work at a company that they believe in as well. So
I really want to come back to this point, but I first want to go into how did the idea for her agency come about?
By accident. I don't think that's what many people want to hear, but no, not completely by accident. I was working at a firm where I felt very underutilized, understimulated, and I had these you could have seen them as three different jobs, but within those jobs, I had many different jobs. And I always put my hand up, I always said, does anyone have extra work for me? I was always those people, like, what are you doing? Can I help? Because I wanted to learn. So I was lucky that I got experience in many different parts of marketing. And when I was working this role, I thought, maybe I can start freelancing. And I started freelancing, and it was quite funny because I sat and I started, I'm sure you know Fiverr, and I started on Fiverr, and I opened my laptop very serious. Now I'm going to become a freelancer. And I remember looking at it, says, I will, that's what they start. The first thing is like, I will help you build a brand, or I will write your CV for you. And I sat there going like, what do I do? What do I want to do? I have no idea. And I thought, strategy. Vague, whatever strategy looks like. And then I didn't know, and this is, it's like a big lesson for me, is start before you're ready, because I was not in any way ready. I didn't know what I was doing. I knew strategy, of course, I'd done that before, but if I look now at what that document looked like for my first gig, that would now become an agency, it was ridiculous. Like, good content, but the actual, no branding, I don't know what I was doing. And I just put up this gig, and I left it. I thought, okay, well, let's see how this goes. And 2 weeks later, I got contacted by this really interesting, beautiful brand, a Syrian guy based out of Spain who started a sustainable fashion brand. And I went, this can't be true. This is my dream. And we started working together. And what I found is we'd work on the strategy together, and they'd have a much better idea, what we call brand clarity. They'd understand where they were going with the brand, but where they got stuck is in the implementation and the execution. So I started doing this for quite a few different brands, working across many different industries. And the same problem, and as marketers and as businesses, we always want to listen, right? We're going like, okay, we provided you with this, and they go, but we need this. And that's how the agency happened, because we do the strategy work, and then customers would say, we're really happy, but actually we don't know how to execute, or we need help now with this. And then I worked in marketing for 7 years. I've got many contacts. Let me connect you, and that's how it grew. So it was pretty organic, and I didn't plan for it to happen in that specific way. But also when I knew when to move.
It's also interesting when you're B2B, because what you're helping your customers with, you doing yourself in your business,
right? And
it's kind of learning on the job.
Absolutely.
But also firsthand saying, try this because it's working for us.
I just did it.
How was that? Was that more or less your process with rolling out your strategy to help them?
In a way, I mean, at the time I'd done strategy for the company that I was working at, worked, and then I did strategy for these companies. So it is exactly that. Even now, being a year into the business, you'll always be developing. So you're trying different things, and marketing is marketing for a marketing company, right? So it's like you're working with your customers on doing things, but you've just done it, so you know that it works. Or you've done it and you go like, that didn't work for me, right? And that's so important. Have these honest conversations with your clients and go like, we've tried that. Maybe it worked for another client in a different industry, but we just did this and that really didn't work. And, it's okay. That's fine. Just be honest. And constantly iterate what we see and what I see and what I've done, right? Is you go, no, this is the only way that I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to pivot. And then you go like, wow, that was a very stupid decision. And you've learned to pivot, or I've learned at least to pivot a lot quicker. And I think this isn't like maybe if we steal from like startup, you've done something, it worked, amazing. You did something else, it really didn't work, no problem, fix, change, pivot. And that's really important.
It also sounds that you had this mentality to fail fast.
Yes.
And test.
Yeah.
And I think that is extremely important quality to have as a founder. How difficult was it to transition from that day job, safety, comfort, to now full on into the business. You did touch on it early on. You said that you listened to your intuition, which made the decision easier.
Yeah.
Did it?
Absolutely. You know, I remember where I was exactly when I made that decision, and I remember the time of day. I remember everything when I made that decision to go like, okay, that's it. Like, I'm done. I had a good relationship with the company that I was working at, and I was really grateful that I got the opportunity that I did to do the work, and I was done. I knew that I had learned everything that I needed to, and I could have stayed at the company. I didn't want to do that. I wanted something. It was strange. I knew exactly what I needed to do, and it was a voice that would not stop. So it started many months before, and it was like, okay, Sonja, you need to do this. You're going to start your own company. I went, you're nuts. I don't want to do this. Why do I want to start my own company? I can work for someone. It's safe. And that voice would not stop, to the point where I would wake up in the morning and be like, when are you handing in your resignation? I'd be like, oh, this needs to end. And I knew at that time that was the next step. So, and then I handed in my resignation the very next day. I went, I've got to do it. It was terrifying. I knew that things would change completely, and they did. And humans want safety. Humans want predictability. It's a normal thing. So when I made that change, I went, I don't know, I've got this one big client and maybe another one, and I don't know how I'm going to get the other clients, but I've got to jump. And I've got to trust, and I've been lucky in that every time I've jumped, there's been a net, and whatever that net looks like, whether the net is another client or whether the net is lessons from the year that I've been building, to go, okay, if you were here a year ago, you'd be stuck, but you've learned so much, and now you're here and you can navigate to another point, and that's been really important.
Practically,
yeah.
How long was your safety net and runway that you just made the jump?
Yeah, that's a good question. It wasn't two. I'm going to answer this in two parts. One is that at the time, the one thing I promised myself when I started working is that I would always save. And whatever that amount was, like at the time, didn't have a big salary, but I always put money aside, and I couldn't touch it. It was very like it's one of the biggest gifts that I could have given myself, is to like, and especially this is like a big lesson to women, like go and get someone who can help you, like unless you want to figure out yourself. I couldn't figure it out at the time. I didn't want to. I went and like found myself someone that could help me, a financial advisor, someone you can speak to, and start putting money aside. You don't know. It's not like this nonsense rainy day stuff, but just so you know that you've got a net. And also I think women should be female entrepreneurs, so I think you should always have a net. But anyway, so I started saving many, many years before. Not big, but I had something. So at the back of my mind, I knew that I had something for a few months, and what I then that was at the back of my head. But then when I needed this runway, I was smart in that I made sure, and this is for people who've got these full-time jobs but want to transition to and jump, or like at least have like part-time jobs and want to transition full-time. Make sure that you have, at least for me, this is what worked, is I had one big client. So I was able to go like pull back on that and then go with this client and then build that out. And I didn't know how long that client was going to be a client for. The work I was doing at the time was strategy. That can take a month. That can take 2 weeks. I knew that there was some runway there. So I would say I probably knew about 2 to 3 months of work was coming. And then trust. Because if you do good work, those people tell other people, and then you get more work. So you've got, and again, it depends on what you're trying to build. But if you're trying to transition, make sure that you have something, a little bit of runway, and then make sure that you have some, you can predict like 2 to 3 months of work. But also I think what I really want to dispel is this myth that being in a job is stable. It's absolutely not. I've been retrenched. I was retrenched, and I never saw it coming. And that fundamentally changed the way that I see employment, because people go like, oh, I've got this very cushy job. I could be in here for many years. That may be true, but you can also, a company can go, it was in the middle of COVID. And I was in the middle of COVID, retrenched, and I thought, well, now what? I have no idea what I'm going to do. So taking a leap to start a business is huge, and it's scary, and it's terrifying, all of those things. But your cushy job is not that cushy. You can be retrenched at any time. I don't want to scare anyone, but just that's some advice,
That's definitely a valid point. And there has to be some element of risk involved when you're starting a business or want to pursue entrepreneurship, because like you said, humans need for certainty. There has to be that trust when there's uncertainty, because that's entrepreneurship and starting a business. How did you expand your international clientele?
It sounds a lot fancy, and you're really selling it for me, so thank you. But it was when I started on Fiverr, my clients were international. I think favorably the exchange rate for them and the services that we provide. So we're able to provide services that were cheaper, and South Africans are really, really good. South Africans work hard, and they put in a tremendous amount of effort into work. So I was lucky when I started to get international clients through Fiverr, and then people find you in other ways, and they recommend you to other people. You've worked with one person, they go like, oh, I've worked with this person, you should work with them. Very simply.
We also spoke about culture early on. Most of your team is not in the same city and even country.
Yeah, exactly.
How challenging is that to develop this healthy culture where you're providing that good customer experience that we spoke about earlier?
Yeah, that's definitely as a founder, as an entrepreneur, it's tricky. It's definitely something I struggle with. How do I enable exactly? How can you don't come into a space every day. You speak every day depending on your project, and you want to enable a culture. The team is female, like predominantly female team, and that's amazing. So already the culture that I want to create is a culture of like, I've got your back. So I speak a lot about collaboration and not competition, because we're not in competition. First of all, we're all in the same, we're working towards the same goal, and ensuring that the client meets their goals, but ensuring that the client is happy. So we're in the same boat, we're going in the same direction. There's a mess up, we all messed up. We're doing it together. It's not like, oh, well, that person. I've worked in that environment, and it's absolutely awful, and I'd never want to put anyone in a space like that. So it's regular check-ins with them, and then making time to spend time with people and get to know the person. So we recently had a beautiful catch-up in the beginning of the year, and I was all prepped, and I had my presentations ready, and I'm saying her agency is achieving this, and this year, and I'm so stoked to present this. And in actual fact, we took a whole hour just chatting about the holidays and how we've been doing, and it was beautiful. And I walked away and I went, you know what, Sonja, these are, and I know this, but I went, just people want to connect with other people. They don't see each other, and it's a beautiful team, and they just want to know, what did you do this holiday? And that's okay as well. So it's striking this balance between saying that these are people, and we need there are outcomes to produce, and they produce these amazing outcomes, but then also going like, when we are in sync, we create things together that are really beautiful and really powerful. And I know this person, and they always produce great work, and sometimes they might be going through something, but we've created a communication channel that when this is happening, they can let me know. And that's okay, because someone else is going to pick up that work, or I'm going to pick up that work, and then we're going to get through that together. And that's very important. So communication keeping in contact, and when you can, meeting. That's nothing beats in person. I still stand by that, but that would be the main thing for me.
It also sounds like you have a lot of empathy for your team, what they're going through, their challenges, and seeing them as people.
Yeah.
And I think that developing that empathy towards your team, you can clearly see the results and the outcomes and the OKRs that they're meeting, I'm sure.
Sure.
I want to go to brand building.
Yes.
Early stage founders.
Yeah.
What would you say is like the first step or first steps that they need to do when establishing their brand online?
Yeah.
Or even in general?
Yeah, I get goosebumps. I love this stuff. This is like, my brain's like, hello, let's get going. The brand building is essential in two parts. The one is, of course, crowded market, you want to stand out. Sure. Much bigger than that. You are fundamentally, you are trying to solve your customer's problem. And what I see with many, not even, like startup, small business, big businesses working with big brands, they have a product and they go, you're going to use this. And clients are going, no, hell no. I don't want this. So how do you create a product that people really want? So if you have this product that you're working on, really get to know your customer. That is so essential and something that is completely overlooked. When you say you speak with founders and you go, who's your client? Who's your ideal customer? They go, they live big. They live in Cape Town and they're 21 years old and they like Zara. I go, I have no idea what to do with that. Like, how do you, and tell me more. So really deep dive into who that customer is. Pick up the phone, that crazy thing that people don't want to do. They go, get to know your customer. Spend some time with them. Really write down or, have these questions survey. Okay, but it's better than nothing. But if you can make some time to spend with your customer and write down what they're saying, record it if you can. And what you see when you get this is you get these amazing insights because they tell you exactly what they want. Even bigger than that is they speak in the language that you're going to use, right? So if you're speaking to someone in the same language that they speak to you, you're connecting with them in a way that they understand. If you're creating a software as a service for influencers or for millennials or Gen Z, and you're using these like really big academic words, they're going, forget it, I don't know what you're saying. Not that they can't understand it, but that's the wrong words. You're not connecting with them. You're not understanding the way that they speak, the way that they act, and what they want. So I would always say, start with your customers.
That's a really good point. I think that brand building aside, if you're not solving your customer's problem, and if you don't have a paying customer, you don't have a business.
No.
You also speak about a North Star.
Yes.
What's your North Star, and how does one find their North Star?
Mine as Sonja Woolff, or mine, or her agency? Which one? Both. Mine is very simple. It's always been, how do we do the most good and the least harm? And what I love about that is it's completely subjective. So whatever your most good is and whatever your least harm is where you come from, how you see the world. And I've always been driven by this very, very deep desire to change the way that people see the world and to change the way that we see our place in the world, not as individuals. Of course, each of us have these amazing powers and attributes that we bring to the world, but collectively, I think we operate in silos very often, and we can make such a difference when we collaborate. So for me is, how can I contribute in the biggest way possible, whether that's today or whether that's this week or over my lifetime, and then whatever the least harm looks like for me, make the least impact. Can be big it can be big things, it can be really small things, but that's important. Her agency, North Star, I'll go to the name because I think that's important. So her agency, very simply about female empowerment, about women's ability to choose, and about women's ability to dictate how we work, who we work with, and the interactions that we have with our clients. And the way that I like to think about that is our partners. So, and then how do we build brands that we really believe in? So we believe in our brand, and we believe in building brands that we think are changing the way that other people see the world. And that's very powerful to me, and that is a big why.
How did you get to that?
Get to what?
Get to that North Star.
Of her agency?
Yes.
It's been since the very first day of my job. I've always wanted to, I've always pushed. I've always said, I don't like the way that this is done. And I think that there's people that are being excluded from this conversation. I think that there is an opportunity to make a bigger difference. Money is a big driver. Of course, all companies have to make money. It's a good thing. But we don't have to see money and making a difference as two different things. I think it's an archaic way to see the world. It's the same as sustainability. We see sustainability as this thing that happens on the side. It's not. It's integral to the success of a business. So when I was working in corporate, I was very drawn towards, as a woman, I was drawn towards issues that women were facing in the workplace. And as someone who experienced it, as someone who was always drawn towards, okay, I've experienced it, but there's an opportunity to change it. I don't know how, but I'm going to work with other women. At the time, this has changed now, it's very interesting, but at the time I went, I'm going to work with other women to change this. And that has been core to me, and that will always be core to the work that I do. And I'm so lucky that the team that I work with is facing the same direction, and we're all going in the same direction. So find your people.
I think also what you're saying is that North Star, once you know it, once you find it, the people, the collaboration, the partners, they'll come.
Absolutely. It's like you're a big beacon and you're going, hey, yeah, like come, let's all go in the same direction. And it truly is. I was at a talk once and I was very inspired by this person that had built this incredible business, but it was also very was very focused on improving the environment that they lived in, not like climate change environment, but like changing for the better. And I remember asking afterwards, saying I was very inspired and I wanted to know how to do that. And they left me with such an interesting piece of, at the time I went, that doesn't make absolutely no sense. But that happens. You hear something and you go, that makes no sense. And then like you'll be lying in bed at 2 a.m. and you go, got it. So that's what they meant.
You weren't ready to receive
that. Yeah, it was left and I went, ugh, I feel so much less inspired until like a few months later the penny dropped and I went, yeah, that's huge. But what they said is tell people about your dream. And what I've seen right now, and I've been doing that, and the more you tell people what you're working on and what you believe in, you find your people. And they go, I want to go on that ride. Like hop in, we're all going. And that is so exciting.
Yeah, that's once more, I think we only get what we're ready for.
Yeah.
You also touch on something that I find really important, which is your relationship with money.
Yes.
How did that change for you over time to now? It seems like you have this healthy relationship with money.
Yes. Huge, huge topic. Money, I think we're taught, there's so many negative associations that we have with money. So we look at rich people and we go like, ew, that's disgusting. They're like flaunting their money. Or like money doesn't grow on trees. Like there's like a scarcity that comes with money. So you grow up thinking like, oh, if I spend this, then I'm never going to have any more money. In fact, I think that there's many correlations to a resource that we think there's a scarcity of. So it's creativity. Like business owners often say to me, like, don't tell anyone about my idea, okay? Which is funny because it seems like there'll never be another great idea, which is not true. You have thousands of great ideas. The problem comes in execution. But anyway, to go back to money, I grew up thinking that money, that I should just, we say, have enough, whatever have enough is. And that's fine. You have enough money, but you can have so much more. And it's not in a greed way. It's in a way to say, I can do things with money. It's a currency, it's a current, there's energy in money. And my belief is you have, you give away. You have, you give away. And you can enable so many things. That's not a bad thing. And we really need to switch this mindset of going like, I'm going to hoard all of this money and I'm going to keep this money here and I'm going to only for my benefit. But when you don't see it in that way and you see money as ever flowing and ever present in your life, you give so much more easily.
That abundance.
Total abundance.
A question on, once more, the branding.
Yeah.
What's the importance of a personal brand for founders and entrepreneurs?
Mm-hmm. There's no way around it. You have to build a personal brand. I see this all the time. People buy from people. You connect with brands, of course, but when you believe in the direction that the founder is going in, it's so much easier to buy into that story. So whether that is starting, you can start so simply, and like LinkedIn is growing tremendously at the moment, and I think that there's an opportunity, free, right? A great opportunity to leverage that platform and to build your personal brand. Tell people what you're doing. Tell them the direction that you're going in. Tell them how they can help and how they can collaborate. Because otherwise you're operating in a silo. You're operating on your own and no one knows. So personal brand is really about building and selling, of course, the dream that your company is, what they're trying to sell, but essentially, it's an extension of what you believe in. So founders have to get comfortable with being seen, and many people aren't. I think many people shy away from wanting to be seen, wanting to have their opinions known. If you really believe in what you're selling and where you're going, share that with people and tell people about that and start building your own brand. Not just because you want to get clients and money, that's important, but also because you want people to go on this journey with you. And start small. You don't have to, do TEDx talks tomorrow, but just start slowly building on that.
Is that how also founders build authentic connections?
Absolutely. You want to build authentic connections, and talk. Again, we have to understand who your customers are, but you never want to talk down to people. You always want to talk on the same level and understand what people are going through. You're going through the same thing. We're all going through the same thing. We're all going like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And speak about it. Speak about your struggles and ask people and really build a brand that is built out of authenticity and drive and passion. If you have that, which as a founder you do.
Yeah, I think that I heard this amazing thing and I read it and I also interviewed him. His name is Johan. So Johan mentioned that there's no authenticity without self-awareness.
Absolutely.
If you don't know who you are, then you're probably going to put out mixed signals on the outside. Yeah. And I thought that was like super profound.
Yeah.
Just to summarize, just to touch on that point.
I agree.
You also speak a lot about women empowerment, and we touched on this just a bit earlier on her agency and what it means. In terms of female founders, how do we enable more female founders to be, firstly, to start businesses, and then secondly, to build successful and impactful businesses?
This is an age-old question. And it's something I grapple with a lot, and it's understanding that there are so many opportunities for entrepreneurs to test out and start, I guess, follow a dream that they have. Female entrepreneurs, as a founder myself, as someone who's walking this road, I've not walked, I'm figuring it out as well. The beauty of this is that I get to figure this out with so many other female entrepreneurs who are in the same boat. We spoke about when I started at, as I mentioned, data, how I was always very much drawn towards issues that women were dealing with, because I was dealing with them myself, and I could see that it was affecting so many women, from the positions that they were going for the way that they spoke in meetings. And when I moved into this space, I really realized that all along this journey, women are stopping themselves. It's heartbreaking to see that, because they have these incredible ideas and want to change the world in whatever that looks like, right? Whether that's in their community or if it is going to the moon, right? Whatever that dream looks like. But they're not even getting started because there are so many, I want to say like stop signs, but they're so much bigger than that. It's just going like, whoop, no, you're not going to do that. You're not going to do that, and you're not going to do that. And it can be two things. It can be one, themselves, stopping themselves, going like, I don't feel confident enough to pursue what I want to pursue. And then actually, when we think about women and who get funding, I heard a stat yesterday. In fact, the latest stat that I know of is that women get within Africa get 7% of VC funding. In fact, it's lower than that, and it's between 2 to 5%, which is a shocking statistic. I'm hoping it's 5% and not 2%, but it's indicative of where female entrepreneurship is at the time, is that we're not getting started because even when we try and get funding, we're not going to get funding. And that's very difficult. How do you even, when you try to build a business, maybe you don't need funding, and you don't always need funding. But if you do want to build a business at scale and very quickly, funding is probably a route that you want to go. So for me, a passion of mine and a project that I'm working on with a partner who's unbelievably wonderful, and I feel so lucky to be working with her, is how do we create opportunities and enable access for women to get access to mentorship and coaching, huge thing. Soft skills, so developing soft skills, imposter syndrome, we could speak about for a very long time. And the third thing is the hard skills, the finance, how to pitch, how to ask for money, how much money to ask for. And I recently had this incredible realization, because we were talking about attending pitches, and two companies pitched. The one guy asked for $10 million and a woman asked for 100,000 rand. Who got the money? The guy got the money. I went, it makes more sense, because if you don't have that much money, you could give 100,000 rand, you could make a big difference. But as I was speaking about it, I went, hold on. If I want, as an investor, if I want to make a lot of money in where I'm putting my money in here, I want to believe in someone who's going to the moon. Yeah, I want my money to go to the moon. Of course, I'm going to invest in this person. And when I had that realization, I thought, women need a dream way bigger. We're dreaming here. But in fact, you could go to the moon. You could go way bigger than the moon. And I think about it, just remove all of those ideas of what you think is possible and make it way bigger. That dream 10x, 100x. And that's the work that I feel very passionately about and really want to do.
So we spoke about the soft skills, we spoke about the hard skills, and then it almost seems the third part of that is kind of that vision for themselves. Mm. So how does that, what needs to happen? Is it more support groups? Is it conversations like this? And then what's the action steps afterwards? Is it, what is it?
Yeah, I think the beauty of this moment is that we're trying to figure it out. We don't have the answer, and that's cool. We trying to figure out where women are getting stuck. But what is important to understand, and I've seen these spaces, that there's all female spaces, and these all female spaces are going like, absolutely not, no men allowed, this is only for women. And that's great, and those should absolutely happen, and I understand why those spaces exist. What we're trying to do is understanding that men are super important in this process. Partnering with men in creating access. They are the ones who have the networks in a way that we don't even understand, and thinking about how do we get into rooms that we don't know exist. And if we can't get into those rooms, how do we partner with men that are in those rooms, that are speaking our names when we're not there? And that is so important. So how do we find our male partners who are going, absolutely, what can I do for you? And we've been finding that, and that's incredible. We meet men and they go, this is the most beautiful sentence I could ever hear. How can I help you? Ah, okay. I got some requirements. I've got some things. I'd love a few things to happen. So finding your partners, finding your female partners that are in collaboration and not competition, and then finding your male partners and going, we're building this, and we need you to open a few doors for us, and we need access to your network, and we need you to speak our name when we're not there. And that's fundamentally what we believe is gonna change.
Next steps. What's in the pipeline for her agency?
For her agency, that's a good one. Next steps, working with more brands that are on the sustainability journey. And, I really do see sustainability in two different ways. The one is that sustainability, we can work with a sustainable fashion brand. Amazing. We can work with renewable energy. Great. But the real fun work and the exciting work and the opportunities for me come with working with brands that aren't focusing on sustainability, and working with them and going like, hold on, there's this huge opportunity to bring sustainable business practices into what you do, and it's important, and it's going to get you more money, and you're going to connect with your customer, all of those things. So finding those customers that are maybe on their journey, they're dipping their toes into sustainability, but it's not core, and helping them build their brands.
And next steps for Sonja?
Next, to the moon.
I love it.
I'm not sure, actually. Right now, I'm in a space where it's head down and it's working a lot, and it's trying to build her agency, trying to build same, and I'm in a space where my career is really important to me, and that's good. I'm happy to be here. It changes, it fluctuates, and next steps is building the brands and helping my customers build their brands.
Amazing. Sonja, thank you. This was very insightful. I definitely learned a lot, and also thank you for the impact you're making. I just want to acknowledge you for doing that, not just with her agency, but with women empowerment and entrepreneurship, female entrepreneurship on this continent. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for doing what you do.
Cool. Thank you.